Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today, the topic, is something that I think of as playing according to the needs of the position, which is kind of just a fancy way of saying, figuring out what to do and what's important about the position and playing to your strengths, playing against the opponent's weaknesses. In many cases, this refers to just what's going on the chessboard, but as we'll see, there can be some psychological factors that play into it as well. This is kind of a classic example. Some of you guys might even recognize this position. It's currently white to move in the present position. And yeah, actually, maybe I'll ask you guys, how do you evaluate the position as it is? Some of you have already sent it to me, but if I could get it from more students, that would be great. How do you evaluate things here? Is it closer to equal? Do you prefer one side or the other? Definitely a lot of imbalance in the position. Okay, so far I got black is slightly better, sharp, and it can go either way. Black has two bishops, but kingside looks somewhat exposed. Yeah. Okay, someone likes black's position. So it seems like, for the most part, people actually maybe prefer black slightly, if anything. Especially, it seems, because of the dark squared bishop, which, yeah, I definitely agree with you guys, is probably the strongest minor piece on the board, right? It's like an unopposed bishop. It's on this very open diagonal, and there's tons of stuff on the diagonal to put pressure. So black definitely has some weaknesses. If you guys are saying like light squares are definitely weak, like f5 square and these light squares, but black also has this very nice e5 square, and e4 pawn also may be target. Okay, yeah, I think that's a pretty solid evaluation. And if the pawn was back on g6, then maybe we would say that the black is like clearly better, because f5 would be covered and black still has all of the same advantages as before. Okay, so in the game, white played the move bishop b5. Now let's flip it, and I'll ask you guys, what should black do in response? And okay, I think I'm going to close chat for this part, just because I want you guys to send me your messages privately. Thank you, Brian, for that. I'm not sure if you meant to send that to everyone or... Okay, so I'll give you a chance to think here for a second, try to figure out how black should respond. And if you want to say something, just let me know in your message. Okay, Davis, do you want to say your answer out loud? Cool.
Okay, so I think that black should play rook d8, because if black plays bishop d7 or knight d7, then knight f5 is a major threat, and we will lose our dark squared bishop. And although rook d8 seems to lose the tempo, a6 to b5 can actually gain the tempo, so it's not really that bad for black.
Okay, yeah, very good. I think that's quite good logic. Yeah, you can also go rook f8 here, but the main point is, yeah, black really doesn't want to trade off the light squared bishop. And it feels awkward to make a move like rook d8. It's like, feels very passive, but okay, what is white's bishop doing on b5? It's just going to get kicked with a6 anyway, and eventually the rook will come back. So black isn't actually losing any time. But on the contrary, if we compare it to bishop d7, white gets to trade off the light squared bishops and now has much better access to the f5 square. So this would be strategically a very serious problem for black. Now knight f5 immediately, not really a good idea, right? Queen takes f5. But actually, let me flip it. Let me ask you guys to think about it for a sec here from white's point of view. How should white continue to fight for the advantage here? So a question on knight takes d7. I think that's also possible, but then white is able to just play knight f5 directly, and that's quite nice for white. This knight on f5 is... So if bishop takes c3... Then white can go bc. Queen takes e4. Yeah, that's a good point, Aryan. Let me think about that for a sec. Yeah, maybe knight f5 is too early. Maybe white should play something else instead of knight f5. Although even that endgame, black has like a lot of weaknesses, like h6, d6 is hanging. I wonder even if maybe the endgame is nice for white, like rook takes e4, king f1. Okay, so far I see a couple suggestions for queenside castling, a couple suggestions for kingside castling, and also e4 to stop b5, and maybe queen e2. The queen e2 we have to be careful of e4 pawn. And king f1 suggested. Okay, any other suggestions here? Because the issue you guys are mentioning is like if white plays castles kingside or queenside, in either case, black goes b5. And yeah, it's kind of annoying, like this idea, like b5, b4, and we have to worry about the e4 pawn. a4 is possible. But I'll tell you guys, black has this other idea that's kind of annoying, knight g4, where it's a little bit, white's position starts to feel a little bit loose. If knight takes, queen takes g4, and then the e4 pawn is under attack, king is still not castled, bishop is opened up now. So, yeah, maybe f3 here, exactly. Kind of a surprising move, but actually it solves a lot of problems for white. Like it stops knight g4, so it doesn't allow this counterplay. It also makes b5 not as serious of a threat because the e4 pawn is defended, and so b4 doesn't come with the same punch. You just move your knight away, and so what? And then the plan is actually like g4, knight f5, and then you just secure this f5 square. Maybe if you have time, you can even bring the other knight to d1 and e3. Or for example, like let's say b5, g4, b4, knight e2, and this knight can go to g3 and f5. Let's see some questions. If a4, knight g4, knight f5, and then f3. Well, again, the problem is queen f5, right? And then f3, black will probably have a move there. And if knight e4 here and f5, I mean, yeah, also another pretty sharp idea. I'm not sure. But also could be kind of difficult for white to deal with. So that's the nice thing about f3 for white in this position. It just controls a ton of key squares. So anyway, this is the issue with trading off the light square bishop for black. So even though this move does kind of feel natural and comfortable, it leads to all kinds of problems because black really needs the bishop to control the light squares. Question, would the white king stay in the middle, or would another piece or another place be more preferable? Not sure. I think white can just castle kingside at that point, and the king is really safe. You can even put the king on like on f2 in some cases, and bring your rook back to the h file, and then that's going to be very annoying with the knight on f5. By the way, does anyone recognize this game? Usually, you guys are like, you guys know everything, or at least someone knows like every single game. This is actually Larson versus Fischer from the several decades back. Fischer was playing black here, and he goes rook d8. He just understands, like, yeah, he can't give up the light squared bishop. So let me show you how the game continued, because the way black outplays white, I think, really instructive. So white goes back, bishop e2, rook e8. He could also go a6, but okay, rook e8 repeats, see what white wants. And now white continues, f3. So white kind of plays for a similar plan, except here black is, of course, always having knight f5 covered, because black will just take, and white doesn't get to put a piece on this square. Knight h7. So the knight is, of course, going to f8, and then maybe g6, and doesn't block the bishop, and so rather than going knight d7, you put the knight on g6. White goes g4, knight f8, a4, knight g6, king f1, and rook b8. So black is just kind of playing, let's say, typical Benoni style moves, right? Bishop d7, a6, b5. This is the usual plan. And long term, this queenside majority is very, very powerful, because especially with the bishop on g7, it's just such a strong piece. So bishop b5, rook d8, and now white plays knight f5 and goes for it. Black takes, knight e5, and white plays knight e4. So we get kind of a transformation here of the position. Right now we have like, I don't know, I think of it like opposite color bishop's middle game. White just played knight e4. Fischer goes a6, bishop e2. Okay, next moment here, I'll have you guys stop and think about it for a little bit. Black to play. How to continue. Yeah, g4 from white, I think it was definitely still worth doing here, but yeah, indeed, we can see things kind of went wrong for white on the dark squares. But white's play could have been improved earlier. Okay, we have suggestions for c4, rook dc8, and b5. Yeah, very typical plan. Just pushing c4, rook c8, or just b5 right away. Let's see, knight d7, queen f8, bishop d4. The problem is your queen is stuck defending this h6 pawn. You know, the queen definitely wants to be more active, I think. King g7 would run into f6 ideas. Yeah. Actually, Davis brings up a good point. White has a threat of f6 in the position. So is f6 something to worry about? And if so, how should black deal with it? Yeah, absolutely. He goes knight d7. And actually, it's a really strong move. And not just stopping f6, which is kind of annoying, but also, yeah, just wanting to trade off the knights. And then leaving us with a position where, like, if you compare the bishops, like this bishop on g7, which can control the entire queen side and also go after the king side, versus this bishop on e2. It's like, which bishop is stronger? And it's kind of like following the principle of like trading off your opponent's good pieces, leaving them with their bad pieces. You don't often see it like, you know, someone wanting to get like pure opposite color bishops, but of course there's tons of heavy pieces on the board, right? So that gives the attacker a lot more pressure to work with. So yeah, very, very strong move, rook e1, knight f6. And now if we get this trade, then black's advantage, I think, becomes extremely clear. Like white's king just actually doesn't even have a safe square because, yeah, now all the previous advances have really come back. White can still try to survive, like g3, king to g2, but this is going to take a long time, and now black can just start pushing on the queen side, and yeah, this dark square bishop is super strong. So Larson went back, like just trying to keep the knights on the board. Probably a good practical decision, not to simplify the position in black's favor. Queen d7, but it doesn't end up working out. Fischer just builds up very nicely and doesn't have issues breaking through. Rook e3, brings a second rook, and now h5, and yeah, tons of ideas here, and black broke through pretty easily. So yeah, very cool game. I thought just how Fischer outplayed his opponent in this one. Let's jump to another example. And actually, I'm showing you guys a lot of my favorites, the games that really made an impression on me when I was studying a lot and looking at a lot of the classics. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, for this one, I'll just quickly play through the opening. This was King's Indian, Petrosian variation. And this is actually pretty thematic what happens here. White goes bishop g5 and bishop h4. One of the ways that white can play in this kind of position. It's also very common to bring the bishop back to e3 now that we've provoked h6. But here bishop h4 gets played, g5, bishop g3, knight h5. And white makes pretty interesting move, h4, allowing black to take on g3. And it looks like white structure has been severely weakened. Again, giving up dark squared bishop seems like a big problem. But Okay, the position is not as open as the previous example, right? Here we have the pawn on e5 versus, on c5, so the bishop is blocked. And now black plays g takes h4. And okay, first question for you guys, how should white recapture here? Or maybe there's another move, I don't know. You can get creative. Okay. So let's see, looks like a few of you guys want to take with the knight. I also see g takes h4. So what's the idea with taking with the knight here? What is white kind of playing for in that position? Playing for knight f5. Yeah, because this is now a very nice square for white. Yeah. But okay, someone brought up a point. Knight takes h4 comes with the drawback of allowing queen g5. Because then white will have to figure out how to defend the g3 pawn. We can go knight f5 there, but black will continue knight c5, for example. So this becomes a critical question. In the game, white did take here, and black played queen g5, and now white has to come up with a decent solution. So I'll give you guys a chance to think about it here. Yeah, so if queen d3, then that gets it with knight c5. On king f2, I think the response is also knight c5. And then maybe black's next move there is f5. So queen c1. So king f2, knight c5, queen c1. Maybe just f5 there anyway. If you take on g5, I'll take back. I get the open f file. I don't know. Seems pleasant for black. I'm not sure. Seems at least nice. Okay, g4. Yeah, again, we got to worry about these dark squares. So g4, maybe knight c5 again for black. And in every variation, it seems like black is happy to play bishop takes knight as soon as it gets to f5. And then we kind of feel that Larsen-Fischer game where it's like if black is able to make this trade and get to open up dark squared bishop, it feels unpleasant for white. So, is there any way white can win the battle for the f5 square here? Okay, bishop g4. But then what are we doing on knight c5? Because that is, again, the big question. And we have a problem with the g3 pawn. Yeah, Aryan, let's have you answer this one.
So we start with bishop g4.
Mm-hmm.
Then knight c5.
Mm-hmm.
And then bishop takes c8.
It takes.
Queen takes g3.
So queen takes g3 check. Yeah, if black recaptures on c8, then what does white play?
Queen f3.
Oh, queen f3.
Or immediate. No, I don't think knight f5 is possible because knight takes c4.
And knight e4 is a little bit tricky, yeah?
Yeah, so just queen f3 is the simplest.
Queen f3 is simple. Yeah. Maybe knight f5, knight takes e4. Maybe there's like rook h5 or something. You can...
Yeah.
But you'd have to, yeah, knight c3, yeah, it's not clear. So I like queen f3. Okay, so bishop g4, knight c5, bishop takes c8, queen takes g3 check,
Then king f1.
king f1.
Then you're gonna take on c8, and I play queen f3.
And black recaptures, and white goes queen f3. Okay, and what's your idea there? I'm going to put it on the board.
Basically, okay.
Like, we've given up the pawn, but what's white's compensation?
You use the light squared strategy and play on the light squares around the dark squared bishop.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, knight is coming to f5, and this square is now almost untouchable for black, and if black takes, white gets to open the g file. Now it's just like knight f5, king moves, second rook comes to g1. White is just going to break through on the king side. It's just game over. Okay, very good. So yeah, in the game it was very similar. White starts with knight f5, but essentially same thing. Queen f4 check, queen f3. And even in the endgame, white's knight on f5 is just extremely powerful. Of course, there's also threats of like knight e7 check, but main idea is just playing against bad bishop on g7. So white had to give up a pawn to do this and move the king. So it's like during the game, you know, I remember the first time I saw this example, I was like, honestly, I didn't believe it. I was like, how could this be good for white? Like just seeing this position, you know? You would think you would never want to allow this normally. Like losing a pawn with check, and you have to move your king, and you lose your castling. Like, I mean, it looks crazy, but actually, no, it's much more important for white to win the battle for the light squares. And yeah, now this knight on f5 is just super, super powerful, worth much more than one pawn. So yeah, very cool example. And of course, white went on to win quite easily. Black played king h7, king e2. Nice move. The queens are pretty much getting exchanged. If not, you know, white will start playing, like if queen g5, then rook h5, rook ah1, and white will just break through. And yeah, white forced the exchange, and it was very, very quick until the finish. Yeah, all right, okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that. Knight f5, knight takes c4 line. Cool. Okay, guys. Very good. And here, again, the point was kind of like, it seemed as though white played in a very compromising way. Like, the structure looks super weak. We lost the dark squares, but this knight on n, we ended up losing a pawn, but it was just all about getting this knight to f5. Let's jump to another example here. Oh, whoops. And I actually want to start at this moment. And it's white to play. Last move was knight to c4. And I'll give you guys a little bit of time here just to start thinking about the position and try to understand what's going on here. Okay, so we have a couple of choices here. We have bishop b4 and bishop c3. Any other moves white should consider? Maybe bishop b6 we could also check. But yeah, rook takes a4, and hard to come up with an idea there. So yeah, main options for white here are either bishop b4 or bishop c3. Big difference between these moves is that with bishop b4, we're kind of offering a trade. Likely black has to take this one because otherwise they're giving up a lot of room. Or bishop c3, we can keep the two bishops. Yeah, how do we evaluate the position? Who's better here and why? Yeah, seems like white is better here. At least a little better, maybe even clearly better, based on how much you like having the bishop pair and more space. Definitely it feels like white is doing well. Also, rooks on the b file make a very nice impression, right? It's always good to be the one that's putting pressure versus the one that's defending, because you never know when there's going to be some breakthrough all of a sudden. Okay, so yeah, it's like a big choice here between bishop b4 and bishop c3, and both moves make sense, like, and I think both are good. In the game, this is actually Magnus' game. He goes bishop b4, and I thought it was quite interesting that he trades off the bishop. I don't know if this was 100% the best move. I think bishop c3, white also has a big advantage, but I think it's just interesting that he decides now is the time to trade off the bishop pair. Maybe he just doesn't think he's going to get a better opportunity to do so. But now we start playing this kind of middle game, bishop versus knight. So knight d6, queen c3, rook a8, queen c2, defending the pawn, rook a6, and white goes h4. It's a very typical move in these kinds of positions where it's like we have a little bit of pressure, and now, well, what's the idea behind h4? Maybe someone can explain using words. Yeah, playing on two flanks. Absolutely. And specifically, why does h4 here kind of bother black? Yeah, because it puts pressure on g6. And now black has to make a choice, either allow white to play h5, and then white can either take on g6, or even think about putting the pawn on h6, which long-term can be very annoying for black's king. Or black can play h5 themselves, but then that's also weakening, that's weakening the 6th rank. Well, black decides to play h5. Okay, now white to play. How to continue from here? Yeah, Angela, do you want to say your answer out loud here? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, let me call on Aryan.
So here, your attacks are blocked on both flanks. So strike in the center, e4.
Okay, e4. Very good. So let's say if black does nothing, what is kind of white's idea from there?
You can go e5.
So you want to go e5?
I mean, like, for the time being, e5 or d5.
Or maybe d5. Okay, we can
Those are both
definitely see.
different threats.
And if black goes f takes e4,
Bishop takes e4.
bishop e4, you're fine trading the pieces. Knight takes e4, queen
Yes.
takes. And then how do you evaluate
The
that
rook
position?
becomes very strong. White is better.
White is better, yeah, because g6 is weak. Black just has more weaknesses in the position, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, e4 is right. A few of you guys pointed out this move, and it's, I think, quite strong once you see that it's possible. But it's also a move that you might not want to play in many positions because we're giving ourselves some weaknesses too. Like now the d4 pawn is going to be isolated and weak, but it doesn't really matter because this g6 pawn is just a bigger weakness. It's a more vulnerable spot in the opponent's position. Now, actually, Eric brings up a good point in this line of takes, black can and maybe should try queen d5. I mean, otherwise g6 is hanging, b7 is hanging. If the rooks invade black's position, it's going to be extremely dangerous, right? So queen d5, trading queens, is maybe the only real defense. But still, after takes, rook takes b7, or black could take the other way, doesn't really matter. Let's say rook takes a4. Let's just quickly pause here. How should white continue in this endgame? Seems like white is better, but what will be the cleanest way to really solidify? Yeah, testing your rook endgame instincts here. Yeah, rook e7, absolutely. And then just coming in with the threat of doubling on the 7th rank. When the 7th rank is open, this should be like the main idea we're looking for. And it's like from black's point of view, if you could get rook a2 and try to get counterplay, that would be the first thing to look at as well. But here white is first, and black has no way. Well, either you play rook a7 and you give up this one and you're likely losing on the 6th rank, or you have to allow the second rook to come in, and then white's rooks just clean up on the king side, and it's likely losing. It's just very, very, even if it wasn't, just in practice, it's so difficult to hold this kind of position. Black just has way too many weaknesses. So understandably, Vishy didn't want to play that. Vishy was playing black here, Anand. He goes rook 8, a7. So solid move, just defending b7 and all these lines as this pawn was hanging. And now how to continue from white here. A lot of you guys were saying e5, maybe d5. Let's take another look here. So d5, there's actually a couple issues. d5, number one, f takes e4. Is not super obvious. But also on d5, let's say black plays just c takes d5. I guess white would go e takes d5, and then e5. Because black is going to try to keep the position closed, right, against the bishop. And now knight on d6 looks like a really good piece. And white's bishop doesn't feel as good here. So that's kind of the concern with d5. And if e5, well, then we're closing the bishop again, right? And the position is now very blocked. So let's say black plays knight c8 here. So d5, I'm not sure. I mean, c takes d5, and then bishop is still going to feel blocked. If queen c1, maybe king g7 black will start with, and then if queen g5, maybe queen e7. And we can consider queen b2, but I'm not sure what I would think about, let's say, this position here. Let's say we get a lot of trades. And like king f7. Maybe white can just hold on to the extra pawn and say that they have a pawn up. But I don't know, it feels like it wouldn't be... Doesn't feel like it's the most white can get from that position. And maybe black can do something else here. Maybe there's something better. So yeah, it doesn't feel right to like keep the position closed. So some of you guys mentioned e takes f5 feels natural. Yeah, absolutely. After rook a7, e f5. Because that's what white was trying to do, is open the position for the bishop. And black has an issue of how to recapture. Because if e takes f5, then what would be the response here? Yeah, d5. Absolutely. And now black doesn't have a convenient way to, push past or keep the position closed here. The diagonal is opening up, and now black's king is just going to feel extremely weak. And white's queen, bishop, rooks are, now everything opens up. And it's looking great for white. So black played knight takes f5. But now we get the same structure we kind of wanted from before, and now black has a bunch of targets, and Magnus starts switching over to the king side, so rook e1, queen b3, just defending and attacking everything, king f7, rook e4, queen c2, goes rook c4, rook e5, and now black played knight e7. Okay, another interesting moment here. White to play. How to continue. Okay, a few suggestions so far. If you have a move for white here, let me know. Yeah, lots of tempting options, right? Okay, suggestion for rook takes a5 and rook c5. But then black trades rooks, right? So why would that be so good for white? Because we're trading off a lot of our attacking pieces, yeah? Okay, so there's a suggestion for d5. Yeah, d5 is a, I think, very interesting move. Right, closing the file and opening up rook f4 check ideas. And then, so for example, maybe d5, e takes d5, rook f4 check. If knight f5, white is sacking on f5, and everything opens up. If king g7, maybe some sacrifice on h5 and rook g5 check. Yeah, feels very scary. So d5, I think there's quite a lot of potential there. Maybe d5, knight takes d5 should be black's choice, but still looks very scary. And there's also the immediate bishop takes h5. Yeah, a few of you guys have pointed this out. And it's actually quite strong. So let's try to figure out the idea. gh5, queen h7 check, king f8. How does white make that work exactly? d5, I'm not sure. Maybe black goes knight f5. We'll get to bishop takes h5, rook takes e5, but yeah, for now let's focus on this main line. So takes. Queen h7 check, king f8. If d5 there, then knight f5. Oh, sorry, you guys are right. Yeah, d7 is hanging. Good, good. So takes, check, king f8, d5. Maybe rook takes d5. And then rook f4, knight f5. You can win the rook on a8, but we've given up a lot of pawns as white, so I don't know. Also, rook on e5 is going to be hanging, yeah? And if you take on d5, then queen d5 is with check, yeah. So I don't know if anyone spotted the key detail. Yeah, it's kind of not so easy to see. Magnus saw it, but he's Magnus. Although I think this was like a rapid game, so he probably didn't have a lot of time. If rook c3, then maybe black goes rook takes e5, d takes e5, and queen d5 check. Rook f3, knight f5. Yeah, if queen h8, then I don't know how much. I feel like black has some good compensation there. The rook on f3 is going to be awkward. Okay, let's put it on the board. So takes. Check here. And now white to play. Rook c5, I think black trades. And then pawn takes. We would need some move, but maybe queen d4. Like rook takes a4 maybe. For d5, I think we wanted rook takes d5. See what to do. I guess key point is that this rook on a5 is kind of hanging and can be targeted. Oh, Sepper got it. Nice. So yeah, giving check, and then queen takes h5 check. Or maybe you want to be more precise, because check there's knight g8, yeah? So maybe queen h6, And then king goes somewhere, and then queen takes h5, or king g8, queen g5. Very, very cool. I mean, not that complicated, but really hard to spot, as you guys can see. And then white wins this one, and okay, black doesn't have any. White is just up too many pawns here. If king g8, then queen g5. Yeah, and then white's just taking on a5 here. Yeah. If queen h8, let's see, knight g8, and then d5. That looks pretty scary. See if we can find a defense for black. Might also be good. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it looks really scary. Like, rook f4, what are you going to do, right? Like, crazy. Maybe this one? Only move? DE6? Yeah. Rook f5 coming. This was an option, Joshua. This was also an option for white. Yeah, it looks really dangerous for black. I don't know. Hard to see a defense. Yeah, this looks good too. At least I don't see a defense. But okay, this one is just cleaner. And then against bishop takes h5, yeah, black could also take on e5. This is what happened in the game. But here white just recaptures. And now we have this queen h8 idea that you guys were seeing in the other line. Let's say rook f4, knight f5 takes, and here white isn't like getting caught like rook f3, queen d5. Here it's just exchange up. So black tried queen d5 check, but now just bishop f3. And queen takes e5. So after all that, actually, we end up just trading. So it's just a big trade with so many tactics in this one move, bishop takes h5. And it ends up black gets the pawn back. But the position has continued to open up for white's bishop. So white is still very happy here. e4, queen d6, h5. Again, now opening up black's king even further. And white still has enough pieces that black's king feels very unsafe. So yeah, Vichy tries to survive, but it was just a matter of time. Queen h7, takes. Bishop comes back. And now final assault, g4. The pawn joins the attack. Knight g7. And okay, last moment, how to end the game for white here. Rook e5 is funny. Yeah, lots of good moves. Rook e3 I like. If queen h4, I don't get the idea. King goes back to f7. Oh, g5. Gotcha. Well, yeah, I mean, white is doing really well. Okay, well, I mean, basically white has a lot of moves, but yeah, g5 is a nice way to end it on the spot. Queen takes g5 check, rook g4. King f7, we have bishop h5. Okay, so that was the game over. Really well played, and I just thought it was like the game followed such a logical flow after bishop b4. It was really nice how it just follows this one kind of trajectory, just like trades off dark square bishops, gets light square bishop against the knight, and then from here white's play was all about trading as many pawns as possible. So h4, h5, black doesn't allow it, e4, black doesn't take, e takes f5, and then, okay, it was hard to set up g4 here with, you know, this knight on f5, but Magnus just keeps building up, and then eventually finds this really nice breakthrough. Wasn't the only way to play the position, of course. White is still very much better here, but okay, this was a really nice shot. And it was just, yeah, all about opening up the position. Even here, rook e4, h5, and that's it. Black couldn't hold on in the end. Okay, I had a few more examples for you guys, but maybe they'll have to wait until next time because we're out of time. But yeah, good work, everyone. Hopefully you have a good holiday, and good luck if you're playing next week, which was like most of you guys. Hope you crush it, and I'll catch you guys next time.